Hey, what's happening? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm Ivan Rodriguez. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for hitting that download button if you downloaded. Hey, if you're listening for the first time, this is the Cycleshack, the podcast that talks about motorcycles and more. It's not just a motorcycle podcast, so get ready. Today is Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. And just wanted to jump on real quick and knock out another episode of the podcast. It's before we dig right into it, I wanted to say another special mention and thank you to Stream Beats by Harris Heller. Even though I didn't play music on the beginning of this podcast, if you've heard the other episodes of the podcast, the music in the beginning and at the end, intro, outro, is done by Harris Heller Stream Beats. Check them out at YouTube at Harris Heller or harrisheller.com. Another very special thank you to Anchor.fm, now Spotify Podcasts, the host platform for this podcast. For all your, podcast listening needs, check out Anchor.fm, now Spotify Podcasts. All right, dig right into it, man. Hey, it's June 6th. Today I was working, and throughout the day, nice, beautiful day. I don't think it hit 80. I was down in New York City, about an hour and a half south of the suburb where I live. Had to go in for business. Came back up, and everything was fine. But then it started getting real hazy out. And it turns out the Canadian wildfires happening up north in Montreal, Quebec, wherever they're happening, there's a front that came in, and it's blowing down into the U.S. And man, the streets on my whole neighborhood, I mean, it looks like all of New York State, and I saw the news, it's down in New York City also. There's a haze, a fog, and you can smell smoke. It's like a wood burning. It's an eerie feeling, man. To think this thing made its way hundreds of miles from the northern Canadian air down to here. It just goes to show you how powerful wind mass is. And, man, it smells like, you know what it smells like? When people are burning wood for chimneys, that's what it smells like. But there's a haze in the air. You can see the fog settling in between the homes, and over the horizon, you can see the fog of smoke. It's hovering so that the sun looks like it's on fire. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, the sun has like this cherry red glow. It looks like a cherry up in the sky, because of the smoke that's blocking it, or blocking us from seeing it. It's amazing. It's something I think I've seen this once before. It was due to wildfires that were happening. But yeah, it's crazy. So a Canadian air mass is bringing in some smoky conditions to New York State. All the way down into New York City, parts of Jersey. I'm going to say parts of PA as well. I live near the Pennsylvania border, and I'm sure they're getting, they're feeling it. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about here was basically a DIY part of this job of having a motorcycle and working on things yourself. I'm an avid DIYer. It's not because I don't feel like spending money on. Well, number one, let's face it. Harley Davidson is charging a pretty penny for you to work on your bike. For things that you can do yourself with a little bit of research, and if you're mechanically inclined, a little know-how. I worked on cars. I went to automotive school. Although I never completed it. I know enough that I've been wrenching on cars since I was a kid. I do my own brakes, service my own brakes, and do my own oil changes on my cars. I've done tons of, chassis suspension work on my own cars. So I know enough. Enough to save a pretty penny anyway. So, like anything else, because I don't have a proper lift or whatever the case may be, or the right tools, and I'm not going to buy these specialty tools because they cost an arm and a leg to do the job, I'm forced to take it to a mechanic. Now, with motorcycles, it's kind of the opposite. where I can do almost everything myself. Knock on wood. And one of the things that I can partially do myself and still save a penny is changing out my own tires. The way I do this, and I probably mentioned it before, is what I did is for myself and my wife. First off, I don't buy Dunlop Dunlop American Elites. That is part of the comparison that I was going to do here today. Before I make a comparison on the other brand that I buy to replace the Dunlop Elites, is I wanted to say that first off, to buy the Dunlop Elite through Harley, it's $310. Okay, installed, they want to charge you almost $400, $420 for just a rear tire. Then they're charging you another $280 for your front tire. So when it's all said and done, it's $600 and change, almost $700 to purchase and install and balance the tires. Harley doesn't balance shit. Most Harley dealerships just throw in the balancing beads and call it a day. They charge you an extra $40 for the kit when you can buy the bead kit yourself. But let's pull back on that, right? So it's official. You're not taking it to Harley. You need new tires. So what I do is, because I don't have a proper tire iron kit, although I have been researching it, and I think I might be taking this on myself, but who knows. What I do is I throw my bike on my makeshift lift. I did the same thing with my wife. We needed tires, so I bought the tires of my choice. I pulled my front and rear wheel off, which again gives me a chance to look at everything, inspect everything, and get more intimate with my bike so I know how it operates, look at everything, see if it needs anything else. So what I do is, for $30 a tire, I buy the tires myself, remove the tire from the bikes, take them in, and for $30 a wheel, I get them replaced and balanced for $30 each tire. So each motorcycle cost me about $60 to replace the tires, plus the purchase of the tires, which is about $300. And I'm exaggerating because it's a little less than that. Okay, so let's say it's $400 altogether. That's still a $200 and something savings in my pocket per bike to do. And now I'm embellishing, giving it more credit than what it is. It's actually more than a $200 something savings. But we'll pull back on that. When you have multiple bikes that you're maintaining, that's my wife has 2 bikes, I have 2 bikes. Hell, I got one bike, I got our Sportster sitting there that we haven't gotten tires for yet, because again, as a DIYer, you save money. You got bills, you got other shit going on. You don't just dump everything on your bike. But anyway, that being said, we decided that, I convinced my wife, hey, why don't you buy? They don't make my exact tire and the brand that I buy for your bike, but the brand that I do buy makes a replacement for your tire in a sportier type, because my wife has a 2021. I have the 2016. My wife's bike is the 2021 Sport Glide. The tires on the Sport Glide are the Michelin Scorcher 2s, which are like a sporty type tire. And the cut in the tire looks like a very, sport bike-ish type cut. So the tires that I buy are the Shinko tires. I've been using Shinko for about 3 years. Had them on another bike. Love them. I am 110% satisfied with their quality. I'm 110% satisfied with the way they wear. And I'm 110% satisfied with, once they're worn, that they're still safe. To a point, right? Because all worn tires are unsafe. But I've never felt unsure of the tire, you know what I mean? Like I did the Dunlop. Now, I am not knocking Dunlop American Elites. It's a good tire. Okay? But my problem with the Dunlop Elites is that, one, they crack on the walls. They do. I understand you have to keep proper tire pressures, etc. That's with every tire. but I've had problems with cracking. Haven't had an issue because of the cracking, but it just makes me weary. The only issue I have with Dunlops is that as the compound wears, and I don't mean when the tire's worn, I mean as it wears, that the bike still, it's got life. The tire still has life. It's got good tread. It's not in the red zone to be replaced. The compound becomes a little slick in rain, and I don't like that feeling. It's an unsure feeling. With the Shinkos are sticky all the way till the suckers wear down and they need to be replaced. They are completely sticky. It's a softer compound. I have not gotten any less mileage on my Shinko 777 heavy duty. They make them specifically for Harley touring bikes. They call the Shinko 777 HD. The rear tire for this bike, before I get into that, the compound is wonderful. It's a very soft compound, and you'd figure, it's soft, you're going to get less mileage out of it. No. I get just about the same mileage as the Dunlop American Elite. So I am happy with it. Dunlop American Elite, I'm being generous when I say $280 for my rear tire. For my wife, her Michelin Scorcher is $310, just the tire to purchase. I got my rear tire, Shinko 777 HD, for my 2016 Ultra Limited Low. I paid $140 for it, $30 to mount it. So that's a good savings there. For my wife's bike, her Shinko, I don't remember the type. I really should. If I'm going to do the podcast, I should tell you what types I buy. But anyway, if you go and look up the 2021 Sport Glide, Softail Sport Glide, you will see the type of tires that Shinko sells for it, and it's a beautiful compound tire. It feels great. Her tire was $139. 129, 139, I don't remember. That's the rear tire. Front tire was $120. But almost the same. Pop that on. Did the same thing with mine. Mine was, I got it at $97, $98. Bullshit. I think it was $110. They're a little more expensive this year than they were last year, or the year before rather, because I still had my original ones last year on this bike. And yeah, I save a good penny on changing tires and purchasing the tires and getting them changed out. Now I could save even more money if I brought a proper tire changer and invested in one. And I'll save the $60 per bike to get them swapped out. And all I'd have to do to balance them is get the balancing beads, pop them in, and done deal. And I might even look into that. I might even be doing that. So again, it's not about being cheap. It's about saving where you can as a DIY type of guy or person. So that being said, I love these tires. I love the compound. They feel very safe. I've done extensive research on the Shinko tires and gotten multiple opinions, and the good far, far, far outweigh the bad. The only bad reviews that I see that are out there for them are those die hard, and hey, I would agree. A lot of people are on that America, die hard, America. You got to get Michelin. You got to get a... Listen, Harley Davidson's buying shit from overseas as well. So let's face the facts. I did my research on Shinko. It's a Korean-made tire, but it's a very well-made tire. It's a value tire, but it's a very well-made value tire. And all these guys that you see on YouTube with the bikes, that Harleys that they use for fucking doing wheelies and all this other bullshit, the low riders, etc., doing the wheelies and the spinning arounds and all that stuff. What do you think they're using? Shinko 777s. choppers that are coming out now. They're popping Shinko tires. Why? They're affordable for the bike builder. It's an affordable tire. Okay, Ride Like a Pro, Jerry Palladino. I don't know if you guys seen him, the motor cop that does the instructions on how to make U-turns without dropping your bike, etc. What does he use? I got the recommendation from him, Shinko 777s. And he beats the piss out of them, and he gets just as much miles out of them as he does with the Dunlops. So, very good tire. I highly recommend them. Not getting sponsored or paid by Shinko. I'm just talking from experience. This is my third bike that I've had it on, and I love it. It's the second set of Shinko tires that I use on this bike. The first set, man, I put them on, and I dropped about 150 miles on them, and then I did a trip and did about 1,800 miles to and from and around and about to North Carolina with some friends and my wife, and the tires were flawlessly phenomenal. I almost screwed up saying that. Phenomenal. Flawlessly phenomenal. Look at that. I said it good. Yeah, the tire was flawless. I was satisfied with the performance, and I rode in a heat wave, okay? It was freaking burning hot. The road was 100 degrees, okay? And the tires performed excellent, including in the rainstorms. I could not be happier. So there you have it. That's my recommendation for the DIY tire. Other DIY projects that if you want to save a buck that could save you a pretty penny, hey, I'll list them for you. And they'll be on the notes section of this podcast when you check it out and look at it at your favorite places where you download podcasts. Check out Apple Podcasts or check out Spotify Podcasts. But anyway, other motorcycle DIY projects. Brakes. To change your own brake pads, it's pretty simple. Okay? It's 2 bolts. That's all it is. Front or rear. Swap them out. Done. Just don't do anything else. I mean, if you know your fluid doesn't have to be changed, go easy when you pop that piston back in. Pop your new pads on. Put them on. Make sure everything is torqued to spec. Your 2 bolts. Done. Squeeze your levers. Make sure you got play and they're nice and tight. You're good. Now, again, this is provided that you don't have to switch your fluid. You're supposed to switch your brake fluid every 2 years. Car or motorcycle. Some people go more. You can get away with a 3rd year. Moisture gets in there and it just messes up the brake fluid. But anyway, that's one. Your wheel bearings. Your wheel bearings are, the tool to buy it's like $50 on Amazon. And you can pop out your own wheel bearings and pop in your own wheel bearings. Buy the wheel bearings from Harley. You can buy them aftermarket at JP Cycles or Dennis Kirk, etc. They sell Harley touring or Harley motorcycle wheel bearings. Pop them on and off. Make sure you put the spacer in. Make sure the spacer still has just a little bit of play inside. You're good. You're golden. You save a ton of money doing that stuff yourself, where Harley will gouge the living shit out of you. Sorry, Harley. Tires we just mentioned, right? 3-hole oil change. Now, I allow myself to buy the more premium oil because I changed the oil myself. When I was not changing the oil myself, I would have to go, let me tell you, for the Milwaukee 8 engine at my local Harley-Davidson dealer, for a Milwaukee 8 3-hole oil change service, they are charging, ready for this, $540 for Milwaukee 8 3-hole oil change service. $580. Now, granted, they probably tweak and check and tighten other things, but baseline, you're getting an oil change on your tranny, engine, and primary. I'll spend $100 on engine oil, which I'll get AMSOIL. I'll spend $25 on AMSOIL Severe Gear for the tranny. And I'll use just the generic Harley-Davidson primary oil for $774 that I pay for it. And I change the fluids myself. And every time I unbolt that the oil bolt, I always put a new O-ring on it. Bought a pack of O-rings, 50 O-rings, orange ones on Amazon. The heavy-duty ones, the good ones, not the cheap ones that Harley gives you, the little black O-rings that break. These things break. Oh, also, what's important is that you clean the receiver end of that oil ring, where you thread it in. Make sure you take a rag and wipe that down really, really good. Because that receiver end has an area where the O-ring seats. And when you tighten it, it compresses that O-ring properly and doesn't damage it if you clean it. Most people don't clean it, and they tear up the O-ring, and you wind up having leaks. So those three things right there are enough for you to have a significant savings. I also bleed my own brakes or change my own brake fluid. Got to be careful when you do it on ABS. Although I'm considering doing a modification with the ABS so I don't have to worry about that, which is called an ABS delete. Bypassing the ABS module or just removing it altogether. Why would you do that? Well, let me explain. I hate ABS, especially on a motorcycle. It can really screw you up bad. If your ABS module fails on the closed position, one of your rotors will be locked. Your wheel won't move. You'll be lucky if it fails in the open position where your brake lever locks and you can't close it. That's your ABS module that's locked up on you. At that point, you got to go back to Harley and pay an arm and a leg or buy a new module, which is going to cost you about another $1,000. Why go through all that? I hate ABS on a motorcycle. 2008 Harley put them, and they've gotten better, but they suck. And on my other non-Harley motorcycles that I had, I did not have ABS, and I was fine. Always had non-ABS bikes. It wasn't until I got Harley, and when Harley had a 2008 anniversary edition, that one had the first edition of ABS, and now my 2016 has ABS. While I have no complaints on my 2016's ABS, I'm always weary when I change the fluid. Because if you let the fluid out completely, you screw it up. So you have to purge the fluid while you have dirty fluid inside, and just got to keep purging it so you keep clean fluid. It gets messy, and you just waste a lot of fluid that way. But yeah, I prefer removing the ABS module completely. You can bypass the ABS module, or you can go ahead and disconnect the banjo bolts and just run new brake lines. And just don't tie them to the ABS portion of the bike. All right. Get the Y connection in the front. Run your two lines to that. Run your two lines up to that Y connection, and then that other connection goes up to the lever. Done. And then the rear, same thing. The only thing in the rear, you have to use there's a certain part that you buy that allows you to put the brake sensor. Excuse me. Got a yawn. Been breathing that smoky air all day. So yeah, you got to buy it's a aluminum device that's threaded on two sides with a hole in the middle. That hole in the middle threaded is where the ABS where your brake light sensor goes, and then you just use that and go right to the caliper. No more ABS. You can bleed your brakes normal. If you got air in it, you bleed it fine. Or if you decide to suck all your fluid out dry and then put fresh fluid in and bleed, you could do that. And don't worry, oh my God, the ABS module is going to lock up on me. Don't got to worry about that. Problem solved. So I'm thinking of making that mod to my bike only because I just would like to get rid of the ABS module. I don't need it, don't want it. Worst part of that is that you're just going to have the little ABS light that blinks when you first start the bike. It's going to blink permanently. Big deal. And I think if you just reconnect your ABS module, it might just go away. I don't know. But I'm just willing to get rid of it. Straight up. So those are the little things I just wanted to mention as far as DIY and maintenance to your bike, etc., etc., etc. Why not? Save yourself some money. Don't pay that Harley tax. Don't get me wrong. Support Harley. I buy enough clothing, and I've got 3 Harleys in my collection here, sitting here. So I've supported Harley enough. And I'll continue to support them when it's time to get a new bike. I'll just swap out bikes. But I'm not ready to do that yet. So, again, I will continue to support them in some ways. But to constantly, it's bad enough I'm overpaying for the bike. To then go and continue and get the service and continue to get, raped by them? No, I don't think so. Hey, the one thing I want to say is I mentioned the bike last time on another podcast that I thought was a great value. And that was the Electroglide Standard. The Electroglide Standard. It came out, I think, in 2020. It was called the Electroglide Standard. It would look like a Street Glide, right? Or a Street Glide Special. No trunk. It had saddlebags. Solo seat. It had a fairing, but the fairing was blank. It had speaker indentations where you put speakers in eventually when you want them, and it had the little indentation for you to put a stereo in the future when you want it. But it was a very generic, bland, no cruise control. Don't even think it had ABS, or I think ABS was the only thing it did have. But there was no cruise control, no nothing. This bike was just a plain bagger for $18,999. All right, and I think that was a great deal for a bare bones bagger that you can work from there and modify and do whatever you want. Put your own stereo in it, do whatever, work on it, chop it down, however you want to handle it. I think that was a great buy, and I think that's what Harley Davidson should be doing. I challenge Harley Davidson personally to do this. I really do think we should get more bang for the buck. You don't have to compromise paint. You don't. And that's, not for nothing. Harley gives you premium quality in their parts. But I still think they can make something more affordable. I really do. But they're trying to put themselves in this class where it's a premium bike and you pay for it what you pay for it, like it or not. And you know what? Kudos to them, but I really do. What's going to happen is eventually you're going to get someone that's going to corner the market by making a more affordable bike. Because even the let's be politically correct, I was going to say the Japanese bikes, but even the metric bikes, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, those bikes are not cheap either. I mean, they're cheaper than Harley, but they're up there in price. It's the motorcycle. Motorcycles in general, vehicles in general are going up. But they managed to keep certain costs down. I mean, you can get a decked-out Kawasaki Vulcan Vaquero, which is like a Kawasaki's version of a Street Glide, right? You can get something like that decked out, all dressed up for $18,000. You get something decked out, dressed up for Harley, that's $30,000. You know what I mean? Even Indian, the other American motorcycle, right? That claims to be better than Harley, right? I don't think it's better than Harley. I think it's an alternative to Harley because, number one, the Indian that you buy today, and I've said this before, is not the Indian of yesteryears. It's not an Indian. It's nothing but a modified Victory. All that platform that they had was all for Victory. They decided to dump Victory and just dump it all on Indian. That's one. Two, I don't have a problem with the Indian bike. I don't want you to think I'm a hater. I just think that they're tooting their own horn and saying they are a better bike than Harley. That's a matter of opinion, one. But a matter of fact is that they are just as expensive as Harley. Their parts are just expensive as Harley. And there is not a huge aftermarket for it. But let's put that aside. Even if there was, they are no more affordable than Harley Davidson's. They are just up there with Harley. Okay? It's just all a matter of what you want to pay for. That's the bottom line. I don't think it's a better quality bike than the Harley. I've ridden both bikes. I will say that Harley bikes do come, I won't say better made, because I can't knock the Indian like that. It is a well-made bike. But the only flaw was when I rode the new Indian was that it felt very plasticky and very toyish. There were a lot of things rattling and rumbling on it that just shouldn't have. And yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the feel. To me, the fit and finish wasn't great. It saw plastic items that should have been metal or steel, etc. I saw a lot of plastic dipped chrome stuff that should have been metal chrome dipped stuff. You know, and that's where Harley kind of far exceeds. They do go the extra mile with that. But again, Harley still is a way overpriced bike, in my opinion. But we'll leave it at that. Hey, thanks for listening. If you got anything you want to send to me, send it to the Cycleshack podcast at gmail.com or drop me a note on Facebook at the Cycleshack podcast. Check me out. Listen again. Thanks for listening. If you hit the download button, greatly appreciate you. Greatly appreciate taking time to listen to the podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.